Hola mundo, hello world. It's your girl, soon to be Doctora Carrillo. And this video is going to be just basic information about grief. Um, if you've been following me on any of my social media outlets, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, you would know that I had a very significant loss this week. I lost my grandma, my Costa Rican grandma. And it's not the first loss that I've experienced in my life. I've experienced quite a bit of loss from a very, very young age. I think the first loss that I can remember, the first death that I can remember, was when I was probably in kindergarten. One of my neighbors was run over. And from that point, it's just been one thing after another, loss after loss after loss, death after death. A couple years in between. And one of my greatest losses that I've experienced was the loss of my father, my biological father. He was really one of my closest friends, and that hurt. I still am not done healing from that. But this loss is different for me. This loss is, maybe it's because my grandma was 106 years old, and maybe that's why this loss is a little bit easier to tolerate, just because I know that's definitely outside of the norm. Despite the fact that it's out of the norm, I still feel all the feelings that we feel when we lose somebody. But I'm definitely trying to use this experience because I also have so much joy in my heart. Because I know that she's in a better place. I'm really trying to use this experience to teach and to educate the world about just grief and loss, because a lot of it is misunderstood. And so I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the different modalities according to psychology. So there's a lot of different theories, not a lot, probably about 4 or 5 different theories about loss. There's primary loss versus secondary loss. The one that we are pretty familiar with is the different stages of grief. And here are what some of the stages are. Denial, thinking, no, this can't be happening. If anybody's ever gotten a phone call about a loved one being lost, we're in complete denial, like, this can't be right. Not my sister, not my aunt, not my grandmother, not whoever. This can't be happening. That might be an initial reaction or response. Then it says that we go through anger. Why is this happening? And let me tell you that this theory, it's a good theory. However, that's not how human emotions are, and we are all different. So they talk about going through like a circular experience of these feelings, bargaining with God. I'll do anything to change this. It should have been me, not them. Things like that. Then the depression kicks in, right? The sadness. What's the point of going on after this loss? What's the point? This person was everything to me, right? And then we go to a stage of acceptance. I want to mess with your guys' theory a little bit, because grief is not linear, nor is life linear or circular. And so these are some of the emotions that you'll experience, but I'll tell you this, and this is a real truth. You experience every single emotion under the sun when you lose somebody, especially if it was somebody that was dear to you. You sometimes will feel crazy, like legit crazy, like you don't know what is going on inside of your head. And that can be a normal part of the grieving process, and people don't understand that, nor do they explain that. I've attended quite a few seminars about grief and loss, and one of the best seminars that I've attended, shout out to you, Melissa Lombardini from Elizabeth Hospice in San Diego. Incredible. This woman has had over 10 years experience in grief and loss and has really educated me about this process. And so one of the things that grief and loss experts say is that it takes typically about 2 years for us to go through kind of those stages and cycles of the shock, the denial, all the feelings under the sun. But grieving is and can be a lifelong process. It's not something that you just get over in 2-year time span and that's it. When we reach that level of acceptance, even after we reach that level of acceptance, there's still pain, there's still depression, there's still those feelings of denial, or even bargaining. So again, it's not linear, it's not cyclical, but it's everywhere. It's crazy. And some tips. I guess maybe some things that you should look out for or be aware of that happen when we are going through this grieving process. Sometimes we feel it physically in our body. There was a point in time this week where I was having deep breaths. I was physically having a hard time breathing because it was such an intense feeling for me. You might experience changes in appetite, weight loss, definitely sleep issues, shaking, trembling. You might be hyperactive or underactive. You may not want to do anything. You may experience feelings of emptiness, tightness in your throat. For me, every time I start crying, I know that I'm about to cry. It's because I salivate, my throat closes up, and then the tears start falling down. You might feel restless. You might feel weakness or even dizziness. And just know that these physical reactions to grief are normal. I can't stress that enough. I don't know what normal is to you or what normal means, but it's normal. Tears are okay. I don't care what anybody says. We need to cry it out. A lot of times what happens is we want to run away from the pain. We want to escape the pain. We want to keep ourselves busy. We want to overwork or just distract ourselves from the grieving process. And that can be super detrimental because I guarantee you it will not be the last loss that you experience in your life. And if you don't cope with it appropriately, it can affect you. It can affect your day-to-day stuff. It can create long-term effects. And so I really encourage you guys. I know it's tough. Trust me when I tell you. I know it's tough, but you got to work through the pain. Here are some of the things, spiritually you can start to lean in. I have an incredible support group through my church, through my family, and I'm using that in this moment. I'm using that to get me through because I know I'm not strong enough to do this on my own. Socially, I'm really trying to keep myself around people because what happens when we experience a loss is we tend to want to isolate. We tend to want to be by ourselves. And it's super important for depression to not set in and get, to the point where it takes over our lives, to be social. You will experience just a lack of motivation, initiative. You don't want to do things. And I encourage you, you can allow yourself to do that, but get past it. Some of the ways that you can, actually, let me tell you guys about a really good resource. One of my mentors wrote a book, and it's available. It's an ebook. It's called Loss and Grieving, Improving Effective Coping with the Process. And I'll show you guys what it looks like now. That is what it looks like. So it's written by Dr. Kent Layton. He is one of my mentors. And there's a worksheet in there, things to help you get through. Another really good resource that you can use is therapistaid.com. And they have good worksheets on grief and loss. There's sentence completion worksheets. There's things that you can do to get what you're feeling on the inside out. That's a really important thing. You can't hold on to it and harbor it. You got to get these feelings up and out some way, shape, or form. I highly encourage you to do it in a positive way. Some people do it in an unhealthy way, drugs, alcohol, whatever. But the important thing is just cope. Just cope. There's a lot of things that you can do to honor your loved one. You can plant trees, you can draw, you can write poems, you can write a letter and throw it in the ocean, or write a letter and set it on fire so that the ashes and the fumes go up to your loved one. Whatever it is that will make you feel better. I highly encourage you do it. Something that will help you to honor your loved one. There's a million different ways that we can do that. And so for your grieving process and for your healing process, I highly encourage you guys, honor your loved one. They deserved it, no matter what the situation was. Um, and so that's it. If you guys have any questions, any comments, feel free to drop them down below. You can follow me on social media at Facebook at Brenda Carrillo, um, Instagram at Doctora Carrillo or Dr. Brenda Carrillo. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope that this was helpful. I'll go ahead and put the links below to the resources that I was talking about. Seek support. Support is so important. I would encourage you guys to even attend a grief and a loss group. Those things are really incredible. We need to heal. That's the most important thing, is go through the process. Don't try to stunt it. Don't try to avoid it. You gotta go through it, because it's just going to be sitting there waiting for you 20 years later. Hope this helps. Signing off, your girl, soon to be Doctora Carrillo. Bye. Thank you.